Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm going to do a book review. So today I'd like to talk about How to Have a Good Day by Caroline Webb. And this is a book that I mentioned in my 2018 favorite books wrap up. I think that it was just such a really good and useful book that I wanted to share a little bit about why I thought it was so useful and some of the key takeaways from the book. So this book is a self-help book, which is talking about how to use some of the learnings from neuroscience and behavioral economics and psychology to make better decisions and frame your outlook on life in such a way that you have a better workday. I think that the book did a really good job of balancing the science with the practical advice. The very first part of it is a little bit of an intro to some of the science, and I do believe that's useful to read through. And then the rest of the book is filled with really straightforward explanations of very specific types of things you should be doing, the science that underlies that, anecdotes that explain and show examples, and then at the end of each chapter there are very specific actions or questions for you to think about throughout your day to help you have a better day. And I thought it was very, very practical and very useful, and I plan to use this. So I've created an Excel spreadsheet, which I have titled How to Have a Good Year, with the 52 weeks of the year and each of these kind of sections broken down over the weeks with specific areas for me to focus on, questions for me to ask, things to do each day. I highly recommend, if anybody else is just looking to have a less stressful day or maybe have kind of a more positive interaction with their coworkers or just feel better and more energetic throughout their day, I think this is a really useful book. So at the beginning of the book, Webb sets out this nice little chart talking about how to see the different sections in the book. She says, first of all, before you even start your day, think about your priorities and your productivity. So for your priorities, that's being intentional about how you approach your day. She's got a lot of great suggestions in all of these, but I want to talk about just a couple of key ones that I thought made sense for me. So for priorities, I liked that she said, when you have anything that pops up in your mind while you're in the middle of something, you shouldn't just keep that in your mind, you should write it down in a to-do list, because as long as it's in your working memory, it's distracting you. Similarly, you should think about creating goals which are approach-based rather than results-based. So when you think about what do I want to put on my to-do list, it should be things that you personally can control, such as I'm going to spend 20 minutes working on X rather than I'm going to complete task X, or I'm going to, get 100% on whatever, right? So focus on what your actions are rather than what the results are. For productivity, this is about making the most of your time. So using your time very wisely. One of the key parts of this section was that you should not be switching between tasks. Every time you switch between a task, you're going to need some ramp up time and some wind down time, and that's just not very effective if you're constantly being distracted by other things. So just batch your tasks, work on one thing at a time. So if you are working on analyzing something, don't be checking your email in the middle of that, because that's going to be distracting you. Just handle your analysis, take a nice break in between, go handle email, and then work on your next task. She also recommends that you should, at the beginning of your day, when looking at your to-do list, think about what the most important single task is. So often my to-do list includes a ton of different things, and it's a little hard for me to prioritize, but I like her way of saying, no, just choose one thing for sure that you want to get done by the end of the day, and then everything else can just be filled in as you go along when you have time. But choose that one thing, and then you'll feel really successful at the end of the day because you've got the most important thing done. The next general section is things that you should be doing in every task. So for this, she wants you to focus on your relationships, your thinking, and your influence. The relationships section, which is about making the most out of every interaction, I thought was really particularly good. This is always something that I know I need to work on, so I very much paid attention to all of the different suggestions she had. A couple of the ones that really stuck with me was to use collaborative intentions as your focus. So when you are trying to accomplish something, have a meeting or work with someone on something, she said you should make the relationship your priority rather than the task. So rather than focusing on what's the agenda, what are we trying to get done, you should focus on how you're interacting with somebody to collaboratively work together and do something jointly. And that focus on the relationship rather than on the task, I think, is something I definitely want to work on. I liked that approach. Another thing that she said was to always assume that people have good intentions, but they maybe have bad actions. So even when somebody does something that is frustrating or causes you problems, or you feel like they weren't being very respectful, she said, you should always assume that people have good intentions and just something got in the way and they weren't able to act as good as they wanted to. And I think that's really nice because we always judge ourselves on our intentions. I didn't mean it that way, or, oh, no, it was a joke, right? So we always judge ourselves on our intentions. We should try to do the same for others, give them the benefit of the doubt, and just assume that they're trying. So I liked that approach. The section on thinking is all about how to use your brain at its best. There were a couple of good suggestions in here. Some that I particularly liked was the idea of refresh and reboot when you get stuck on something, and I found this is very useful for me personally. So if I'm thinking about something and I just can't wrap my head around it, she suggests just stop, put it down with the intent of coming back later, allow your brain to sort of get off of that topic, go do something else, and then come back to it a while later. Let your brain kind of do some of that background processing for you, come at it with fresh eyes, and almost always that does help for me. So I really liked that suggestion. Another one was to use a decision tree. So when you're faced with some sort of complex issue or decision that you need to make, writing it down as a decision tree. So things like, okay, what are the possible actions or the possible ways of looking at this? And you break it into sort of the topmost level, and then for each one you break it down further and further and further. And just by drawing that out, you can make a complex issue be much more approachable, much more understandable. You can look at all of the little details and think about them clearly. So I liked that idea, and I think that I will try using that the next time I run into kind of a thorny issue. The next section on influence was just about maximizing your impact. So one of the suggestions here was to, when communicating with people, this is maybe very widely known, but I always forget it anyway, keep it short and simple. I always go really lengthy, talk way too much or write way too much. My emails look more like novels. So I really need to rein it in and remember that the shorter and easier it is for people to get exactly what my meaning is, the more impact I will have. I also liked a very specific idea that she had for kind of career progression, which is at the end of each day or each week or even just each task, you write down what you accomplished. So you keep a list of all of the things that you've been accomplishing. And then that way, when it's time for you to move on to a new job or time for you to look at a promotion, you've got this very detailed list of all of the things you've accomplished, because it's very easy to forget what you've been doing. And it doesn't have to be just tasks. It can be things like you helping somebody else out, whatever you think is an accomplishment and is important for you to note, so that you can be able to bring that up when you're moving on to the next stage in your career. So I really liked that idea. And the last part is focusing on what you should be doing throughout your day, in particular resilience and energy. Resilience is a really key concept. It's all about how to deal with stuff when it goes bad. You know, how to keep moving, how to recover, how to learn from it, how to be better. I think on this there were a couple of points I liked. One was on letting go of sunk costs. It's so easy to want to keep going down the road you're going because you know you've invested so much effort and time into it already. And every time I've done that, I have regretted it. It's one of those, you're gonna have to abandon it eventually, or you're gonna have a very bad outcome. And so you might as well get off of that track that's not working sooner rather than later. I just remember some code that I wrote, which really should have been recursive, and instead I used an iterative approach, and it just took so long. Anyway, you should just let go of your sunk costs, move on, and accept that not everything works out the first way you try it. Just try something else until you find what works. Another concept from this section that I thought was pretty useful was when you have a bad experience, kind of reframe it, and instead looking at, oh my God, all these bad things happened, or oh, this really didn't work out, you think, hey, I have now something that I can learn from. I can learn from this bad experience and become better in the future. So if you try something and it doesn't go well, now you have experienced trying that thing, and you have knowledge about what works, what doesn't work, and you can be better in the future. And so I liked that shifting of the way you view things, so that even when something is bad, it doesn't have to be an entirely bad outcome. So I liked that the focus on a positive part, even when something goes wrong. And lastly, energy. Just how to keep your mood up throughout the day and feel like getting stuff done. Coffee is great, but I think there's a lot of other internal things that you can do too. She has a lot of suggestions, which actually I've run into before in Shawn Achor's The Happiness Advantage, which I thought was an excellent book. I think I might reread that this year even. It was just so good. And it's just all sorts of things about how you can make yourself see the world in a more positive light. And when you are feeling good about the world, you feel energetic and you like to get stuff done. So two of the things that I saw in Webb's book, as well as Shawn Achor's book, is talking about at the end of your day, look at 3 things that have been good or that you're thankful for. Just kind of acknowledging and focusing on good things that happen throughout your day. I do this already, so I journal at the end of each day, and at the very end of each day's journal, where I kind of reflect on what's gone on that day, I write down 3 things that were great about the day or that I'm thankful for, and almost always they're really small things, like, you know, wow, I thought that the rain was really pretty today, or that person at the grocery store was so nice, or whatever it is. It can be super small, but just getting in the habit of recognizing all the really good and nice things that happen throughout your day, it puts you in a better frame of mind. The other suggestion that Webb had, as well as Achor, is to do random acts of kindness. Just being nice without any expectation. So things like holding open the door for someone, or just giving a stranger a compliment, or smiling at your barista, whatever it is. Just small little things that nobody's expecting you to do, but that makes somebody else's day just a little bit brighter. So it's not kind of all about yourself. The more you do for other people, the more you tend to feel better yourself. So I guess that makes it a little bit about yourself. But anyway, the point is, you'll enjoy your day more if you're making people around you enjoy their day more. Overall, I thought that this book just had so many really good suggestions. I mean, not only were the overarching ideas and concepts really well presented and really well thought out, but it was presented in such a clear and coherent and actionable manner. I mean, you can read this and just flip to any chapter that you want that you think you need to work on, see what suggestions there are, and do them. I think that it's a great way to work on continual development of yourself. I don't think that any of us really learn in school how to be an adult or how to be a good person who lives a happy life, but these are things that are really important to figure out. And I like that this is very, very itemized and actionable, giving you ideas of how to make every single day better. So if anybody else has read this book and recommends it or has thoughts on it, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you haven't read it, I really do recommend it. Just leading a happier daily life is always a great thing.